Europe, the 14th century. A world on the edge of transformation, but no one could predict what was coming. Not a war, not a revolution, but something invisible and unstoppable. In the year of 1347, death came not on horseback, but on the backs of rats. Ages Ago History, premium documentaries. The Black Death, history's most devastating pandemic, began its deadly march in the East. Most historians trace its origins to Central Asia, possibly near the plains of Mongolia. It traveled westward along the Mongol Empire's newly stabilized trade routes, spreading silently from caravan to caravan, city to city. The Black Death was caused by Yersinia pestis, a bacterium carried by fleas that live on rodents. By 1346, the deadly disease had reached the shores of the Black Sea. The Genoese trading colony of Kaffa, a vital port controlled by Italian merchants, found itself under siege by the Tatar-Mongol army. But the siege would take a dark turn. When the plague broke out among the besieging forces, the Mongol commanders made a horrific decision.
What sickness is this that takes our men?
A bad omen. Kefeth walls stand strong while we weaken.
They catapulted the corpses of their infected soldiers over the city walls, in what would become one of the earliest known uses of biological warfare. As the plague swept through the panicked city, the Genoese merchants and sailors, desperate to escape, boarded their ships and fled, unknowingly taking the disease with them. A year later, in 1347, 12 of these Genoese ships docked at the port of Messina in Sicily, but they carried no cargo worth trading. Most of the crew lay dead below deck. The few who survived were barely clinging to life, their bodies covered in black, swollen boils. The authorities, horrified, forced the ships to leave, but the plague had already found its way into Europe. The disease spread rapidly. From Sicily, it reached mainland Italy, then France, Spain, England, and beyond. By the end of 1348, most of Western Europe was under siege by the invisible enemy. This wasn't just one disease, it was a perfect storm. The bubonic plague, spread by flea bites, attacked the lymphatic system. The septicemic form infected the blood, and the pneumonic strain could pass from person to person through the air, making it the deadliest.
Herbs and spices.
Victims developed high fever, vomiting, and large black swellings, called buboes, in the groin, neck, and armpits. Death often followed within 3 days. There was no cure, no understanding, only fear. People were lost, unsure of what to do. Survival became the only thing that mattered. Countless lives, countless families, and countless stories, all vanished without a trace. Those who died suffered greatly.
Come in.
Those who survived witnessed horrors beyond words. By 1351, the Black Death had killed an estimated 25 to 50 million people in Europe. 1/3 to half of the continent's population. Entire towns were wiped out. Fields went unplowed. Families collapsed. In some areas, death came so quickly that corpses were left in the streets. Mass graves, called plague pits, were dug. Priests and gravediggers died faster than they could bury the dead. The social structure began to crumble. Fear ruled the streets. Some turned to religion, believing the plague was God's punishment. Others blamed minorities.
Get them out!
In many towns, violence and pogroms followed.
They're here! We must flee!
In the 14th century, germ theory didn't exist. People had no idea what caused the plague. Some believed in miasmas, poisonous air. Others thought planetary alignments or divine wrath were to blame. Doctors wore terrifying bird-like masks filled with herbs, hoping to purify the air they breathed. Treatments ranged from bloodletting to prayers to strange potions. Nothing worked. Trade, the lifeblood of medieval Europe, became the plague's greatest ally. Ships, caravans, and merchants carried not only goods but death itself. In the cities, fear reigned. People fled their homes, abandoned neighbors,
Hurry! Grab what...
even family. Priests refused to perform last rites. Authorities struggled to keep order. The Black Death did not discriminate. From the majestic cities of Italy to the crowded slums of England, no place was spared. It was a war against an enemy that could not be seen, understood, or stopped. The spread of the Black Death in the Middle Ages eventually slowed due to a combination of natural and social factors. A large portion of the population had already died, reducing transmission. People fled cities for the countryside, unintentionally isolating themselves. Some cities, like Venice, began early quarantine measures, keeping ships anchored for 40 days. Behavioral changes, such as avoiding crowds and burying the dead quickly, also helped. The virus reappeared intermittently, but it didn't have as much impact as before. The Black Death brought enormous change. With millions dead, labor became scarce. Serfs and peasants suddenly had power.
We demand justice!
They demanded better wages and living conditions.
Freedom!
The rigid feudal system began to weaken. Cities recovered slowly, but society would never be the same. Art, literature, and religion were deeply affected. Themes of death, decay, and divine judgment filled paintings and manuscripts. Out of darkness came change. Out of suffering came progress. The Black Death was one of history's darkest chapters, but it forced Europe to evolve. It reminds us how fragile our world can be, and how deeply one invisible threat can reshape civilization.